Hello and welcome to the Undiscovered Metric podcast. I'm Ira, Growth Marketing Director here at Verity, and I am thrilled to be joined by Rory Hope, Head of End Growth at Hubspot. Today, we'll be talking about all things growth and how to use data insights to achieve the most efficient campaign performance. Rory, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Irina. How are you? How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Well, let's just dive right in. With so much talk around AI usage in marketing, with Google constantly and consistently changing its algorithms, what are the challenges that you see specifically today for organic growth, and how do you tackle them right now?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been a very turbulent, I guess, 18 months, 2 years. I think there's an algorithm update on the day of recording this as of yesterday. There's the August core algo update that's just rolled out. I do see this volatility in the channel landscape, particularly Google, as a direct result from the emergence of generative AI. Google's been doing a lot over the last 18 months to try and update its core algorithm systems or its core search systems to meet basically the requirement to de-risk its results from low quality AI spam, which is certainly threatening Google's quality of results. And that's been tough, and you have to stay on top of the algorithm updates, study third-party research, run your own experiments to really understand the tactics that are going to work in the new landscape. And for that reason, it's a real challenge for organic growth teams because of the landscape changing so quickly, and that the MarTech availability for around generative AI and what you can do with it now. So it's a challenging time, but that said, organic growth, let's say SEO, is still the most repeatable and predictable investment that does compound over time. So, unlike paid where you switch it off and it's gone, visibility is gone, we do need to commit to organic growth and build out that content architecture to build out a demand funnel. So it's a challenging time with AI, but it's still something that we need to encourage the companies that you work for to focus on and invest in, even if you might be seeing challenges in terms of ROI from traditional channels like organic search. And actually, when I think about what's happened over the past, let's say 12 months with organic search and AI and how Google is reacting, we talk a lot about this idea of thrash from Google. So not knowing exactly how they want the results to turn out. There's a lot of testing at the moment to figure out how you bring in AI overviews, how you surface human created content for people. And what we've seen over the past 12 months, really, from these algorithm updates, the helpful content search the helpful content update, and then the more recent core updates where the helpful content search system has been integrated into core, is a huge growth in forum content. So Quora, Reddit, now ranking in the top positions for a lot of queries that they didn't before at scale, which is, creating challenges for those brands that used to rank in those positions. You've got topic niche websites that are now winning. They're outranking some of the larger sites for a lot of long tail topic specific queries, and Google trying to surface first person or human created content. And when you combine all of those changes, you get a bit of a turbulent landscape where a lot of companies are trying to figure out what the playbook looks like for organic growth in the sort of era of AI. And we'll see how that falls. We're still figuring it out at HubSpot, and we're trying to figure it out for our customers as well.
Right. And you did mention SEO. So 3-5 years ago, everybody was talking about the importance of SEO. Everybody was talking about how you must optimize your content, how you must take into account every single algorithm update. How much has it changed for you since then? Because today I could see that, we're still saying, let's Google it, but I also hear conversations, let's put it through ChatGPT, let's ChatGPT it. So what is SEO for you right now? Is it still an isolated concept and you pay full attention to it, or is it part of a bigger bubble?
So SEO still incredibly important. And I think the way that teams should look at the discipline is that it's about increasing discoverability across online channels organically, wherever your ideal customers are searching and getting information to solve their problems. So whereas in the past, maybe SEO is focused solely on or heavily on, probably in many instances, solely on Google organic search, it's fragmenting now across a lot of other channels, right? So again, I mentioned earlier the prevalence of forums now in Google Organic, which still is the channel with the most volume, repeatable volume. So it's important for SEOs now to start, and organic growth marketers to really start building, flexing their muscles in forums, understanding how to interact with audiences there so that they're visible and that they're able to manage their reputation. You've got YouTube, so video content and the growth of both long form and short form, and also video content featuring in organic Google search results more and more. So it's important to make sure that SEO as a discipline is considering other media types than maybe we were in the past. And that's beyond text, that's video, podcasts like this. But the discipline is still so important because you're investing in your company's infrastructure to generate demand without paying for eyeballs or clicks. And there are still ways of doing that. And I think it's still vitally important that there is this function within a company of looking at channel data, looking at audience data that's provided by channels, be that Google Keyword Planner, be that YouTube Insights, YouTube Studio, to then understand which topics to produce content for, understand how your visibility is trending across those topics, and making sure that you can tie that back to demand that you're generating for your business, be that B2B or B2C. And I think you asked the question about whether or not we should still, or you've heard that people are sort of saying, do we still need to stay as close to all of the algorithm updates, etc.? I would say absolutely, because the landscape is changing so much. It's so important to still, or to ensure that you are tracking your average rankings for the various keywords or let's say topics that you want to rank for on channels like Google, again, on other channels as well, because you need to understand how the channel landscape is changing to then tailor and tinker your media strategy, the creative strategy that you have for your brand. And, talking about the fragmentation of a buyer's journey across multiple channels, I did see a really interesting study, Rand Fishkin, as always, sharing the good stuff. And I think it was from Davos, and it might have been earlier this week. And it was basically the trend of how people are using different channels, and Google is still growing worldwide despite the emergence of AI search. A number of those users, if not most, still use Google within the channel set that they use to find information. And alongside that, one of the biggest growth search channels, let's say, being AI search, Perplexity being one of the main players there. And they recently did an interview with the FT, and I calculated that despite their 500% year-on-year growth, which as marketers we have to take note of and figure out how we're showing up in Perplexity, of course, but that's still 0.01% of the amount of searches that Google processes, and Google's still growing. So we have to take the hype into account and root decisions in data, and optimize for AI search engines, optimize for LLMs. You need to get ahead of the AI overviews, Search GPT, Perplexity. That's important. SEOs and growth marketers need to be there. But we need to take it all into context. You need to bake everything all your decisions, root them in data. So that's the SEO discipline, looking at that data and consulting the business's media function, or creating the content yourself if say you're working at a smaller company. And I still think it's vitally important and will continue to be so.
So true. And I like the word discipline so much here, because no matter what the hype, there are still the golden rules of how things should operate. On the strategy note, because you started talking about strategy and the overall goals, and of course, there are so many marketers working by your side, and they have different priorities, and they might be from different pods within the marketing department. How do you team them all up? How do you work with other teams at Hubspot? Are you partners? Do you share priorities? So tell me a little bit more about that. I'm curious to know.
When we look at who we work with as an organic growth function, I think you can break it down really into kind of media. So HubSpot has a separate media function, and product. So there's the product function, and we in growth we kind of sit within the marketing org, but we work and consult both those functions. Product has a lot more dev resource. Media has an awful lot of creative resource, written content opportunities, design, etc. So we have to build the strong partnerships there to realize the growth that we see. So in terms of how do we facilitate those partnerships, how do we make them happen? Well, at a top level, every year we go into what's called planning season, which happens in the sort of latter H2 and kind of late Q3 through to Q4 for our level. I think company-wide and C-levels, this happens way earlier in the year. And what we do is we basically evaluate where we currently are. We project where we're going to be in a year's time using projections, and again, organic search data is a huge part of that because it's the most repeatable and predictable channel. And we essentially say, okay, if we stay on our current course with the current levers that we're pulling, the resource investment from media, the blogs we're creating, the X and Y, the micro apps we're building with product, we're going to land here. We're going to land here in terms of traffic, leads, QLs, which are kind of qualified leads, and signups. And that's fine. We then consult them, and this is where we're going to land. But we get directives through the planning season from our finance department who's saying, you need to reach this amount of leads or this amount of signups to hit what we need to do. And then we have to try and find a way of bridging the gap between where we're projected to land and where the business wants us to land. And we talk internally a lot about growth levers. So we then evaluate with our partners, with media, with product, what can we do? What could we build? How could we optimize these parts of the blog, these blogs, let's say, build these apps, and what is the projected uplift? And that is a huge part of our role as growth marketers to do that. So we go through planning very closely with our partners, and we go through creative sessions, we talk about projections, we talk about headwinds, tailwinds, and through all of that we have regular meetings, generally once a week, with partners across the business. And through that process we eventually land on what is possible and what do we need to get there, from hearing from media, hearing from product. And generally it works. It's working really well. We get sign off to do the types of things that helps us to grow, and that's what we're accountable for as a growth function within the company. The metrics, the performance. And if we didn't have those strong partnerships, we didn't obsess over those stakeholder relationships, then we would be less effective, and we wouldn't really be able to consult internally. I think final thought, when you're working in a company like HubSpot, and others I've experienced in the past, consider yourself almost like an internal agency, or a sort of center of excellence that then consults and directs resources from your partners that have the resource to really put it into action. And that's how we work. Maybe at a smaller company we would own both production and strategy. So it's an effective system, and we're just lucky we have some great partners.
There's a lot of conversations today where I hear marketers getting overwhelmed with the amount of the reporting that they have to deal with, the amount of metrics that they can track. If I were to put you on the spot here and ask you, what are the core 2 to 3 metrics that you find to be of vital importance to the performance and to the success of your team? What would those be?
It's becoming harder to generate the same level of volume that you used to in the past, because of everything we spoke about before, because of how the channel landscape is changing. It's, organic search, for instance, is becoming you have to invest more to create better content to rank. So it's hard to maintain volumes because you're going to have to spend a lot more. So what I would recommend that other marketers do, and what we're considering is, what we consider now is, let's be very clear about where we are generating revenue from. In terms of HubSpot, HubSpot has a massive blog that we have blogs plural, and we have more visibility than Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur. It's a significant amount to maintain. So where the volumes are challenging to maintain, let's be very specific about where we get the value from. Where is the audience that finds value in our content, and really doubling down there, because generally if they find value, they'll then onboard into the product, and that eventually will create revenue for the company, which is what everyone's here to do. So QL rate would be probably one of the key metrics, because we can put an average revenue to a QL type, to a qualified lead type, like a hand raise in the product, or a product qualified hand raise, or a demo request. And that's great. That does tie revenue back to a page, and then we can then look at the tactics around what can we do for that page, etc. But if you just looked at traffic or visits, or average rank or something like that, then you're missing the link through to revenue. So I would say revenue metrics, wherever possible, that's where you should focus. And then on the product-led side, for us, and I think for many, it's about understanding, if you're generating a lot of signups for a software company, how many of those signups are actually getting value from the product? So how many of them are what we call activating? How many of them are actually taking an action in the software within a 30-day period, and what action are they taking? Maybe that's too granular, maybe for 2 or 3 metrics, but how many signups are activating? So your sign up to activation rate. And by looking at those metrics, or maybe you could call them North Star metrics, it will help to create discipline for you when you're looking at where you should invest, because you're not just thinking about vanity metrics, about traffic and impressions, etc. You're really thinking about where the business is getting value from, where you're able to monetize in terms of those investments.
Thank you. And I'll ask one more closing question, and that's going to be probably 2 questions in one. Let's think about people who are looking up to you. So somebody who is at the beginning of their career, what skill set is needed to be working in organic growth and in growth marketing, and how do you gain that skill set?
I see it as sort of 3 key pillars, and one of these pillars has become increasingly important. Content being pillar number 1. You will not succeed unless you're able to understand how to send messages to your audience through great media. So by content, that is text-based content, video-based content, and audio-based content. And making sure that you have a way of being exposed to good media, good content that you can learn from and take inspiration from is absolutely key. And I'll get into how in a second you can do that. But making sure that you are obsessed with media and how media is shared online is absolutely key. A recommendation there for how you could really build accountability for yourself is to start your own newsletter, even if it's just writing and summarizing news from your industry. News from this industry will be extremely helpful because it will keep you accountable to the changes. And you're starting out and you want to build your profile. Go down that route. You could try using generative AI tools to create images, to edit your content. You get familiar there. You start to understand the MarTech that's involved in content creation, media creation. Content being absolutely number one. Number two being data analytics. So the growth function is completely rooted in data. We've spent a lot of today talking about data and how important it is, making sure that to supplement the work that you're doing to understand media and messaging and what creates engaging content, that you are building a solid foundation in data analytics. There are courses online you can go on to, say, Coursera, and Google has its data analytics foundations, professional, it has advanced, and it's a good start to start to build your proficiency analytics. But once again, you're going to get a lot of that on the job. But if you want to get ahead, then I would say try one of those courses if you're just starting out, outside of college or university or something. And then the third pillar, I would say now, which has become increasingly important, I could say AI because, of course, it's like, oh, wow, yay, AI, that's cool, that's going to work. Automation, that's the third one. AI enables automation, right? So that's MarTech that's now come on the scene, but is enabling automation. So as a growth marketer, automation is really about understanding where you can create efficiencies, where you can create scalability for your strategy. And, one plug, HubSpot, of course, I'm from there, but it's about creating workflows and sequences and automation that allows you to send emails to a greater amount of audience at the right time with the right message. That's absolutely key. And that's just one part of it. Now, with generative AI, you can automate editing, you can automate podcast transcribing, you can automate tons and tons of marketing use cases with generative AI. So building your familiarity with automation software will allow you to do more, arguably, with less. I don't really like that term, but it's important. And I think if you can get on board and trial and use the technologies to build up your familiarity with how to automate your strategies, that's a win. So you have content, analytics, and automation. And if you think across those three pillars, I think you'll set yourself up well for a career in growth marketing. It is so important within growth marketing to stay on top of trends in the industry, changes. And there's a wonderful community of influencers, thought leaders who, their career is making sure they stay on top of this. And they're often from agencies as well, because it helps them to sell expert consultancy. But if you go to various lists online and follow the most influential people in digital marketing and growth marketing and SEO and paid, and make sure that you either create a silent social account if you don't use X, for instance, you don't need to use it, but just make sure you're tracking on X, maybe on Threads. Threads is now growing in terms of where there's a lot of thought leadership, Discord, etc. Get on those platforms, make sure that you're following the influencers to hear what they're thinking about the latest trends. And if you're willing, Feedly is fantastic. So Feedly is a space where it's an RSS feed. So go and find the publications that matter. There are lots of valuable publications and newsletters out there. You can pull them all into your RSS feed and wake up. And when you start work, 15 minutes every day, check it out, because you'll just get this stream of what matters in the industry, and you'll start to really on board and know what to look for in your start to your career, or even just now, if you want to kind of refresh a course in what's going on, because things are changing so quickly. So to recap, 3 core pillars for me, that's content and media, obsess over it. Analytics, you can do a course on Coursera, and automation, doing more scaling strategies. And then for your industry layer, follow the right influencers, set up publications on Feedly, and you'll feel like you're in a conference every week. That would probably be my recommendations there.
And it's almost like the discipline consistency is again what you need here, and literally it's a matter of one coffee break that can actually help you elevate the knowledge and stay on top of what's happening in the marketing world or in the data world. That is an outstanding piece of advice to end on. Rory, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm wishing you an awesome day ahead. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you, Rena. Lovely to chat. And yeah, looking forward to joining again soon. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.